Hello everyone, and welcome to yet another Legend of Grimrock tutorial. This one is going to be short and sweet. I was asked the other day if it's possible to load the main campaign into the editor, and as it turns out, yep, that is indeed possible. And this is a way that modders, we have been using it for quite some years now to take a look under the hood and see how Almost Human created the main campaign of the game. So in order for us to do that, we simply have to load up the editor and go to File and create a new project. And let's just call it Legend of Grimrock 2. Of course, it doesn't really matter what we call it, just some name that we can reference to later on so we know what this is, and the author being Almost Human. Oh, let's spell it correctly. Like this, and then we hit create. And now we have created what we all know to be the default dungeon. This is just the first room, the first level, nothing really placed inside it except the party and the torch. So at this point we are simply going to go to File, Save Project, and then just close it basically down. And then we're going to browse to where the editor is keeping those files, and that is basically Documents, Almost Human, Legends of Grimrock 2, and Dungeons. And here we can see the Legends of Grimrock 2 dungeon that we just created. Let's open that up. And here is the dungeon editor file. And this is the first file the editor looks at when he is loading something up. So if we take a look at this with any kind of text editor, we can basically see that there is a dungeon folder being referenced, and it's pointing that towards mod assets and scripts. And that makes perfect sense because everything that we do would indeed go into mod assets and scripts. And here is that dungeon file, dungeon Lua, and this is the file that keeps getting edited when we are working within the editor. This is holding the layout of our dungeon and what objects we are placing into it and so forth. The other files, of course, being just the assets themselves that could go into our dungeon. So this makes sense from that point of view. But if we take a look at it again, the trick, so to speak, is basically to fool the editor into loading up a different dungeon, loading up from within the main archive of the game. So we point the dungeon folder towards Assets, Dungeons, and Grimrock 2, like this. So now, when the editor is going to load up this particular dungeon, instead of loading up our dungeon, it goes towards the main dot file of the game, and it will simply load up the main campaign of the game. So if we save this down and just close it and go back to the editor, now when we go here and load our dungeon back up, it's going to take a couple more seconds, and here we go. So now, yeah, we have indeed loaded up the main campaign of Legend of Grimrock. So here you can see all the levels that make up the game, and Shipwreck Beach, of course, being the startup level. And we can see down here that we have the starting location of the party. And now we can basically look under the hood and see how everything was done within the main game. So, for example, we can see there are some timers here that are triggering some script when it comes to the hint system. This is basically the HUD print for the hints. So if the party hasn't moved outside of the cage, a hint will pop up telling you to attack to break it open. There's also basically the first script that gets run. So if we kind of zoom into that and see what's going on, we can see that they are setting the default time of day when the game starts to 0.4. They're setting some statistics for the essence founds and power games founds and stuff like that. and here they are calling the video. So if the video has not played, the intro AVF file, then of course that's going to be played. The next script is actually quite interesting one. That's the one that goes through all the chests within the game and randomizes it if there is going to be a mimic or if this is going to be a chest, but it's excluding some of the earlier levels from that because the party would not be at a sufficient level to handle a mimic if the chest would turn into a mimic. So this is how they went about creating the mimic. Maybe if you take some other pointers here, let's look at Twisted Passage. That's also quite an interesting one. If you remember this level from the game, this is where the party had to walk through a set of portals and teleporters, but they would get randomized. So it would not always be the same pattern. So if you came back to the level or if you loaded a game and so forth, you could basically not save scum it, or so to speak. So it will always randomize the layout. So yeah, this is how they went about to doing that. And if and the question I got the other day was about the forge. It was about, it's in the Crystal Mines Abyss here. The question was how they went about creating the forge, and here is the forge of the Fallen Stars. We can take a look at the alcove, and you can see that on instant item they're calling a script, and this is the scripts that is being called. So again, if we take a look at what's happening here, then they are looking for if you have a certain meteorite, or if you have the meteorite, they will spawn the meteor hammer. But there's also there's also an interesting thing happening here. If you take a look at the note, they are saying that an extra hammer is placed inside the wall to ensure that the epic items found statistics has the current count when the dungeon initiates. And that is of course because it looks through all the epic items, but at this point in time the meteor epic hasn't been spawned, so it would be one less than it should be. So what they did here is that they placed they placed a meteor hammer outside of the dungeon, so the count would be correct, that you had indeed the correct count of how many epic items you had collected. So yeah, this is a treasure chest of stuff that people can go through to see exactly how some puzzles were created, what kind of scripts were being used, all the boss fights are of course here, and so forth. You can actually play this. So if you would hit play, we would start, I think, just in the main game. Let's see if it's gonna take a while, I believe. To start. Here we go. Just gonna mute it, and so this is the startup of the game. So this is actually playable, but one thing that people need to keep in mind is I cannot save this because I am pointing this into the main archive of the game. So if I would try to go and file and save the project, I would get an error because it's trying to save it down into a path that's basically unavailable, and so I cannot edit this in any way or save it down. But of course I could copy stuff from it and so forth. But of course I encourage you to just get inspiration from this, and see how some puzzles were made, and then make a twist, make it your own. So yeah, short and sweet, like I said. So if there are modders out there that want to know how certain things were done, this is, I think, the best way of doing it is simply tricking the editor into loading up the main campaign, and then go through it step by step, seeing how everything was done, seeing how everything was made. So yeah, I hope this helps, and take care, guys.